Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Whitehall City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. If you will all please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Ogg, would you please call roll?
Smith.
Present.
Parker.
Present.
Dixon.
Present.
Brown. Elmore.
Present.
Morrison.
Present.
Heck.
Present.
President Potter.
Present. I'll now take a motion to excuse the absent member.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to excuse the absent member.
I'll second.
There's been a motion by Mr. Dixon, second by Ms. Harkar to excuse the absent member. Is there any discussion? Ms. Ogg, please call roll.
Smith.
Yes.
Harker.
Yes.
Dixon.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
The absent member has been excused. This brings us to our approval of minutes, which includes the February 4th, 2025 agenda and regular meeting minutes, the February 11th, 2025 agenda and committee meeting minutes, the February 18th, 2025 agenda and regular meeting minutes, and finally the February 25th, 2025 agenda and committee meeting minutes.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve all of the minutes that you have just read.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Ms. Elmore, second by Mr. Morrison for the approval of all minutes. Is there any discussion? Ms. Ogg, please call roll.
Smith.
Yes.
Harker.
Yes.
Dixon.
Yes.
Elmore.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved. This evening we have two special presentations. The first one will be by Mayor Bivens for Women's History Month and the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, good evening, Council. It is Women's History Month, and I have a proclamation that reads, whereas the City of Whitehall proudly joins the nationwide celebration of Women's History Month, embracing the 2025 theme, Women Advocating for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, honoring those women who are tirelessly advocating for a brighter future and working to eliminate systemic barriers, bias, and discrimination in all areas of life. And whereas women have been the backbone of Whitehall, strengthening our community and opening doors of opportunity for all, and whereas women have paved the way in our nation's history, contributing to movements for suffrage, abolition, labor, education, science, and more, notably, Whitehall has seen the remarkable leadership of women, including the first female mayor of Whitehall, Lynn Oschendorf, and former mayor, Kim Maggard, whose legacies continue to inspire future generations and leaders. And whereas the City of Whitehall is proud to recognize the female leadership of the mayor's office staff, which is primarily led by women, including the executive assistant, economic development specialist director, community affairs specialist, administrative assistant, permit specialist, clerk of courts, deputy clerk of courts, assistant clerk of courts, and human resource generalist. It's a lot of women. This team consistently demonstrates a commitment to excellence and plays an integral role in enriching the Whitehall community. And whereas Whitehall is proud to have a city council that is 50% comprised of women, in addition to the clerk of council, marking another historic achievement in the city's commitment to representation and leadership. And whereas the City of Whitehall is proud to recognize the female leadership of the city's auditor's office. They are an outstanding team of women who work diligently and effectively to manage the city's financial affairs with precision and dedication. And whereas we recognize the city attorney's office and the exceptional women serving in vital roles such as the assistant city attorney, victim advocate, paralegal, and legal assistant. And whereas the city of Whitehall is committed to ensuring women's voices are heard in all areas of public life, from advancing women's rights and fostering gender equity to supporting economic opportunities, access to education and healthcare, the perspectives of women will be integral to every major decision made in Whitehall. And whereas Whitehall is determined to break down barriers that prevent working mothers from thriving in the workforce, actively exploring solutions that will equip future generations of female leaders with the resources needed for their success. And whereas Whitehall continues to align itself with the dreams, aspirations, and needs of all women and girls in our community, the city of Whitehall further recognizes that women of all backgrounds have made significant contributions to the growth and prosperity of Whitehall, shaping its future for the better. Therefore, I, Michael T. Bivens, Mayor of the City of Whitehall, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Women's History Month in the City of Whitehall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Very much appreciated and well said. Our second special presentation is from the Franklin County Public Health, and Susan Foster has come to us this evening, and thank you again for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. That was wonderful.
It does make it tough.
Yeah. So my name's Susan. I'm a nurse by trade with a passion for public health. And as Mr. Potter said, I work for Franklin County Public Health. Have any of you heard of the East Side Community Health Action Team? You have? All right. Awesome. Well, that's good. I'm here to bring more awareness around it and also put a face to that team. So you can use me as a resource. So the East Side Chat consists of Whitehall and Reynoldsburg, and CHAT is Community Health Action Team acronym. And what we do is we facilitate a monthly meeting. We host and participate in events that you all are having. Some things that we've done in the past. Sorry, I get really nervous. Some things we've done in the past. We've hosted, and this is in the past specific to Whitehall. We've hosted a cooking demonstration with Local Matters that was focused on nutrition, education, and food safety. We've hosted 3 education classes focused on maternal health, brain health, and cancer prevention. We've established a gratitude mile in the Whitehall Community Park. I'm not familiar with that. Is anybody else familiar with that? The gratitude mile? Yeah. Very cool. And that promotes mental health awareness, gratitude, and general wellness. We've donated 250 plus hygiene kits to the Whitehall School District. And then we table at local events. So those are just some things we've done in the past. Some things we're currently working on. We have a grant that's called Creating Healthy Communities. And specifically in Whitehall, we're trying to build partnerships to bring, to connect people with healthy foods and also to promote active living. So to promote a more healthy community. So with all of that being said, we're always looking for opportunities to collaborate. And I will leave my information and the chat information with Ms. Ogg, and that way you guys can utilize me if you need to. All right? That's all I have.
Again, thank you so much for coming, and you did a wonderful job. We'll now move on to our standing committee reports. Administration and Financial Management, Chairperson Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration and Financial Management met last Tuesday. We have 2 pieces of legislation on the agenda today. Our minutes are on file, and we will meet again next Tuesday.
Thank you. Community and Elder Advocacy, Chairperson Harkar.
Yes, thank you, President Potter. Community and Elder Advocacy met last week. We have no drafts or pending legislation this evening. We will meet again next week after 6:30.
Thank you. Community Standards Enforcement, Chairperson Smith.
Thank you, President Potter. Community Standards and Enforcement also met last week. We have ordinance 17-2025 for second reading. Our minutes are on file, and we'll meet again next week.
Very good. Economic Development, Chairperson Dixon.
Thank you, President Potter. Economic Development met last week. Our minutes are on file. We have 3 pieces of legislation that are all tabled and being read title only tonight. We will be meeting next week after 6:30.
Thank you. That brings us to infrastructure, maintenance, and services. Chairperson Brown is not with us this evening. Mr. Morrison. Phil.
Thank you, Mr. President. Infrastructure, maintenance, and services met last week. Minutes are on file. We'll meet again next week sometime after 6:30.
Thank you. Public safety, Chairperson Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public safety also met last week. Our minutes are on file. And we will meet again next week sometime after 6:30.
Thank you. And that brings us to Parks and Recreation, Chairperson Heck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parks and Recreation met last Tuesday. Our minutes are on file. We have no legislation on the agenda tonight, and we will meet again this coming Tuesday sometime after 6:30.
Very good. Now we move on to the officials' reports. Mayor Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council, and everyone that's here this evening. Let me first start off by saying I walked past Michael Shannon as I was walking past, and as I thought I read it in the proclamation, but our Director of Public Service is also a woman, but I'm certain that I read it. But I just wanted to make that very clear, just because I do not want to get in trouble tomorrow once I come into the office. But that being said, from the mayor's office, just a few upcoming things. I want to first thank Whitehall City Schools and Superintendent Cherie Wells for partnering with the administration as well as the United Way for a very, 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 very important discussion and town hall with Michael Wilkos next week at the high school from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mike Wilkos of the United Way is just a phenomenal speaker as it relates to housing. He has done some research on the city of Whitehall and how we fit regionally with respect to the growth that is coming to Central Ohio, and he's prepared to do a fantastic presentation as it relates to that. You are all invited to come. Please tell your friends. We've been advertising it and promoting it, and we'll continue to do that up until the date. But it is from 6 to 8 p.m. at Whitehall Yearling High School in the auditorium, and it just will be a fantastic presentation.
What day?
What day was that?
That is March the 12th. I did not say. March the 12th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Whitehall Yearling High School auditorium. And it just, once again, let me reiterate, it will be fantastic. Next, March the 28th at the Center of Hope at 10 a.m., I will be hosting another coffee and chat with me at the Center of Hope. It will be, it should be pretty informational. And then last, but certainly not least, you've been seeing on Facebook that we have been advertising that the Food Truck Festival is changing locations. And the reason why it's important that we continue to beat the drum on that is because for years, everyone has all known that the Food Truck Festival is on Yearling Road. And if you remember, we've gotten so comfortable with the Food Truck Festival being on Yearling, we never even say where it's at. People just know that it's on Yearling Road. But this year, it's going to be at John Bishop Park. And we are going to continue to advertise it. We're going to continue to let everyone know where it is, and we just need supportive council as well as any members of the public to just reiterate that our Food Truck Festival, the location has changed. We want every single person that wants to come to the Food Truck Festival to have the ability. I am currently in the process of preparing for the State of the City. We've set a date in August, in April. I'm thinking Food Truck Festival. I know, if we do it in August, that'd be a long time. In April, at which time I will be prepared to announce our headlining act. And let me tell you where my mind was on the headlining act. And I'm just going to tell you the act that got away, okay? We're not going to get the act, but it is the act that got away. We almost had the headliner for the Food Truck Festival as none other than Babyface himself. I know. I know. But here's what happened. There was a viral video that went out of Babyface being at an event, and a reporter kind of dismissed him for a younger artist, and the internet went wild over it. They were just like, you do not do that to Babyface. And that was Babyface, and everyone went wild about it. Well, as a result of that viral video, Babyface's price got real high. And City of Whitehall could not get Babyface. But the headliner that we are working on right now, I promise, will not be a letdown, and I will make that announcement at the State of the City. Secondarily, at the State of the City, as you know, it's been my custom at a lot of our public events, like the Food Truck Festival became a workforce event. I will be making the State of the City this year also a workforce event, where we are working with our community partners, and we will advertise that also as come to the State of the City and also get sustainable employment. So that will be a component of it, but more details to follow. Just stay tuned, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
When I ask a
You have a
question, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
still gonna run the buses for people back
Yes, the
from?
shuttles
Yes.
will still
Oh,
come.
yeah.
Okay, very good.
I thought
Do
you
you
were
have a
gonna ask who
location?
Babyface was.
Mr. Mayor, do you have a location for the State of the City?
We're thinking that it will be at the YMCA again, but that's subject to change too, but we'll get the notices out.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney Nicodemus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just quick things, at the end of last year, as council knows, we had a new victim advocate come on in the beginning of this year, had a new prosecutor come on. They've been on now for a couple months. Things are going well, great reports from downtown, and have acclimated to the chaos that is municipal court prosecutions pretty well. In the midst of having 2 new staff come on, the James A. Carnes jail facility opened up, which caused some flux in how we prosecute cases and do some arraignments. So I want to publicly thank Reynoldsburg City Attorney Shook. He kind of spearheaded the suburbs and making some of the arguments with the judges down there about how to organize that chaos so that we can be the most efficient. So I appreciate him doing that, and the judges' willingness to kind of modify how they were doing things so that we can manage the chaos that is municipal court prosecutions. So other than that, I don't have anything to report tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. If not, I will be done.
Thank you. Auditor Quinzel.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. I just want to let you know, first of all, that this week my office is back to full complement. We have had the flu virus ripping through our ranks, and I'm the only one that came through unscathed.
Now you have it.
But yeah, we had both of our tax folks out at the same time. We had to close the tax office one day. Fortunately, it was a Friday. They had the weekend to recoup. But yeah, it's been pretty bad. So, but fortunately, they are all back, recuperated enough to function. So there's still some coughing and some of that stuff, but they're getting along just fine. Also wanted to cite, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but so, you know, a couple of years ago, the Charter Review Commission had some things on the ballot. One especially involved my office and the qualifications for the office for Whitehall City Auditor. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because the city of Mount Vernon, Ohio, in Knox County, their auditor had retired. They appointed somebody into the office, and that person has resigned after just 4 months on the job. In his resignation, Paul Mayville wrote, "The issues with this office go far deeper than anything I had anticipated and beyond my skills and experience." He recommended his replacement have a strong accounting background, preferably in governmental accounting, as the city needs someone who can speak and understand the language from the start. So I think we have well protected ourselves against having this kind of thing happen to Whitehall. And I was notified of that through the state auditor's office. The other things are our tax office hours have now changed. We are running 10-hour days. So the tax office is open from 7 in the morning till 6 in the evening, Monday through Thursday. And other than that, I ask for favorable consideration. First off, for ordinance 2025, that's not my ordinance. However, that contract is effective January 1st of this year. That means that my office is going to be responsible for calculating retroactive pay for everybody covered under that agreement. So as soon as we get that agreement, we're going to have to start that process. And it's not an easy one. Lastly, ask for favorable consideration on Ordinance 21 and Resolution 9.
Thank you. Director of Public Service, Rowlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am just getting back from a little over a week out, so if anybody has left me voicemails and emails, I promise I will get back to you. There are a slew of them. I appreciate my team for holding down the fort while I was gone. I don't have much for you this evening, like I said, still getting under my feet here, but I do ask for favorable consideration for 020-2025.
Thank you, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Director of Public Safety, Greg is not with us this evening, nor is State Treasurer Alexander. Since our last meeting, there have been no official reports filed in the council office, and so we'll move us on to communications, petitions, and claims. And there have been no communications, petitions, or claims filed in the council office since the last meeting. This now brings us to our first poll public of the evening, and as usual custom, I invite anyone to please come forward. Please sign in, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'll sign in a little bit here. So thank you. What I wanted to talk about this evening was really just to read something into the record that I'd like to have you all take a chance to look at. I have to bring it closer. And I want to read it, and then I want to tell you what it's about. It says, "The reason we have so many emergencies is due to timing. For example, funds being transferred and or appropriated." And you give an example of funds coming from the general fund to the council miscellaneous account. And this actually comes to you from October 17th of 2023. And this was in response, this was the mayor at the time, Kim Maggard, answering the question from the public of what constitutes an emergency. So what I want to do is put on the record and ask you again as a council to please tackle the issue of what really constitutes an emergency. When you look at what happens with the ordinances, and this was the explanation given from the previous mayor, and it had to do with the fact of timing and the accounting, right, of funds that are being transferred between funds from the general fund into the council miscellaneous account and back and forth. That was the explanation that was given to the public at the time for why we had certain ordinances that were declared emergencies. This has never been fully vetted, right, in terms of, is that the only case that actually constitutes an emergency? And placing that on the ordinances, we would like to have this council address this issue of what really constitutes an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward?
Amanda Waller.
Everybody can. You have to right now. No.
I already did. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's
Thank
okay.
you,
No,
please.
for once I did already. I just wanted to say I appreciated all of the, I guess, robust discussion last week on the Fairway Cliffs legislation. Even though we've been hearing about it for weeks, I felt like it made me think of some new things or in new light. And one of the things that was discussed was getting information on what do we gain and what do we give up. And I assume that was referring to like current or previous tax incentives that are going on here, but it made me think of doing like a list sort of what we would be giving up and what we would be gaining from the proposed Fairway Cliffs legislation. So I'll talk about that now. As far as what we would be giving up, basically 30 years of property taxes that help fund the city and the city services, fire, EMS, mental health, etc., school board to a certain extent. So if we approve the tax incentives, that means that every year for 30 years, basically the city will get the same amount of tax dollars for that property as they receive right now. And then the developer would get all of the increase in the property tax valuation above the current valuation to use for improvements or, or infrastructure, or to pay back So that sounds like good, right? Like it pays for itself almost, but not entirely, because without any development whatsoever, that property, if it stays exactly the same as it is now, there would still be significant increases in the property taxes over time due to normal economic factors, right? So the Columbus area, as we know, has seen rapid growth in the property tax valuation over the last 10, 20 years due to increased, very much increased real estate values, along with general inflation rate. And Whitehall has definitely led the field in these increases as well, right? The property valuation increases. So if we cap the taxes, what we take in at today's level, or the valuation, then we miss out on all that increased property values over the next 30 years. And eventually that lost revenue has to be made up somewhere. And so far the data, I think this is the first purely residential tax incentive or abatement or TIF in Whitehall. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so far the data on residential tax incentives from Franklin County shows that the citizens end up paying for that lost revenue eventually through increased levies and tax rates. And again, that would just be the lost revenue when nothing's actually done to improve the property. When there's a development that would occur even without the incentives, then those lost revenues become exponentially greater. And so in other words, since there appears to be undeniably an option C in this case, that means that we are giving up even dramatically higher amounts just to get to option B, basically. So what are we gaining? This essentially boils down to, again, option B if we give the tax incentives versus option C if we do not.
So you need to kind of wrap up your 3 minutes.
Oh, shoot, okay. Okay. Option B, maybe I can compare those after, I guess. Maybe option B versus option C. Would that be different or not?
I'm sorry, it's a rule for 3 minutes.
All right, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward?
Oh, could you maybe email us the gains, just because she won't be able to come up and speak after, correct?
Correct.
Because it's the same subject.
Okay, I can do
Thank you.
I can do that.
Seeing nobody further, I will ask Ms. Aug to please call roll as to whether each member of council was given a copy of each item of legislation listed on the agenda prior to the meeting, including any add-on legislation.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Peck.
Yes.
Thank you. Under third reading, we have 3 items. We have ordinance 9, 2025, ordinance 10, 2025, and ordinance 11, 2025. All 3 have been tabled until the 18th.
President Potter, I just have something I want to say before we move on from these 3. Last week, if I may please.
Yes, well, we really can't be talking about the legislation.
I'm not talking about that. We
Okay.
discussed this before, and you know that I was going to speak on it briefly. Last week, I talked about making a motion to amend these pieces of legislation to take out the emergency declaration. I realized, and I have been told as well, that to do so, I would have to untable it, make the motion, and then table it again. So I am foregoing that this week and waiting for the 18th in order to do that. So when it's more naturally untabled, to then make that amendment. I just wanted everyone to know, and the public as well, because we had spoken about it last week.
Thank you, Councilman. Under second reading, we have ordinance 17, 2025, which is read by title only, amending Part 3, Appendix, Traffic Schedule 2 of the Traffic Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Whitehall, Ohio, entitled Stopped Intersections, by adding stop signs at multiple locations and creating all-way stops intersections. That brings us on to our first reading. We have 3 items. First is ordinance 20, 2025, authorizing and approving the mayor to sign a contract with the Communication Workers of America, Local 4320, for the contract term January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2027, and declaring an emergency.
President Potter, I'd like to move to introduce ordinance 2025 and move to suspension of all the rules.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Mr. Dixon, second by Mr. Morrison, to introduce ordinance 2025 and for the suspension of all rules. Is there any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Dixon, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
No.
Heck.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025 has been adopted. Ordinance 2021-2025, creating the Cannabis Revenue Account 101.000.44,005 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce ordinance 21-2025 and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
There's been a motion by Ms. Elmore, seconded by Mr. Morrison, to introduce ordinance 21-2025 and for the suspension of all rules. Is there any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Elmore, seconded by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-2025 has been adopted. Our final piece of legislation this evening is Resolution 9-2025, resolving to approve then and now certificates and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce Resolution 9-2025 and move for the suspension of all rules.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Elmore, second by Mr. Morrison to introduce Resolution 9-2025 and for the suspension of all rules. Is there any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended.
Mr. President, move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Elmore, second by Mr. Morrison. Any discussion? Ms. Aug, please call roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Farquhar,
Yes.
Dixon,
Yes.
Elmore,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Heck.
Yes.
Resolution 9-2025 has been adopted. This brings us to our second poll public, and once again, I'll invite anyone to come forward. And as within the rules of council, you could certainly come, but you could not talk about the same subject you may have already talked about in the first poll public. Okay, we'll then move on to, oh, I'm sorry, yes. And again, this is gonna be a separate subject.
Totally different, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It's
perfect.
nicer weather outside now, fresh thoughts, fresh things going on too as well to talk about. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the Women's History Month proclamation. It is nice and inspiring to see how, women represented so fully on City Hall and City Council and whatnot. And I also appreciated last week the discussion on the trees, and hopefully we can do more of that too and see what options are available there. And I think I mentioned it in my letter about the Heartland Bank thing, but I'm definitely happy to help try to apply for grants or funding or whatever, or help with writing those. If that's something that's needed, I don't know, but that's something to consider too if we want to get funding for the trees and everything, because I love trees. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, everybody at council. Something I would like to find out, and it's all over Whitehall. Is there any estimated time of when the street repairs may start beginning? Like Yearling Road has been torn up for what, a couple of years now? I don't think anybody else is going to be coming back over and redoing anything, but that's the only thing I'd like to ask. If there's something out there that gives us an estimated date, that will make everybody happy.
And just so you know, this is traditionally not a back and forth conversation. However, in this case, I'm going to allow it and let Ms. Rowland answer that, because I had the same conversation with her this evening.
Yeah. So Yearling Road was torn up a long time ago from the gas. We didn't want to do another paving when we knew that the water line was going to be replaced as well. So we are anticipating that the water line will be started and paved on Yearling Road starting in April. So that's unfortunately why we had to move the food truck festival, is because that road will be worked on from April to August. Main Street, we're also gonna get paved, once the asphalt plants open. Again, we're told that's early April, so Main Street will finally be looking much nicer, once the weather warms up and it permits.
Thank you, people will be really happy.
Yes, yes.
And sir, thank you for coming forward, but also I saw you sign in, which I appreciate. Also, your name?
Bill Kramer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well then we'll move on to the community date board.
I was waiting for you to look at me.
Yeah.
A reminder, I know I brought up last time, but this Saturday, March 8th, 10 a.m. at Discover is March Towards Reading. There will be different activities going on geared towards reading with different community partners there as well. There's still time to sign up for different sports going on in the community: boxing, baseball, softball, and soccer. And then there's also still summer camp signups going on. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. Ms. Harper, you're always,
I have the nature scavenger hunt listed for March 22nd, so that's coming up as well, but that's everything else Ms. Heck touched on.
okay. Mr. Dixon? Well, actually, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. That was community date board, so we've got that done. Now, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's not full council.
Yeah, one poll council, I got ahead of myself.
Trash night again.
I believe Easter egg hunt is April 15th this year.
Yeah, good to know.
Okay,
That's gonna be here before you.
that's a Tuesday, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
So
it's
not-
tax day,
Not
Tax
sure.
Tuesday.
Not the 15th.
Well, I think it'll be on Tuesday. I don't know what date it is.
15, 14, 13, 12.
Okay,
Well, we'll figure it out.
I may not have any idea.
All right, nothing else for community date board. Now we're going to poll council. Ms. Smith?
Thank you, President Potter. Thank you, Mayor, for your proclamation for Women's History Month. I also enjoyed last month seeing many different members of our own community, the state, and nation celebrated last month for Black History Month. I hope you all at home and here are enjoying this unseasonably warm weather. I walked my dog in a short sleeve shirt. Felt like the greatest day ever. Until it gets cold again, it's Ohio. But I don't really have anything to share.
Okay, well, that, Ms. Heck?
No, are we going backwards?
Oh, now if I can learn to read. Save me here, Amy.
Just a free-for-all over here tonight.
Yeah, it is,
Okay,
it is.
all right. Thank you to everyone who spoke. Ms. Waller, thank you for offering assistance with the trees and grant writing. That's very kind of you. Thank the mayor for the proclamation. I really do appreciate your commitment to recognizing the diversity that does make our city so great. So thank you for that. Thank you to Susan from, I think it was Columbus Public Health, who spoke. I know it can be a little nerve-wracking to get up and talk about the work that you're doing in front of council, but that sounds like an amazing program, so really happy to have her speak. And I think that is all I have. I just want to wish our Muslim neighbors Ramadan Mubarak as they're celebrating the holiday season. So thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, President Potter. I'd like to thank everyone for coming in tonight on this awful night of weather. Wait a minute, I'm used to saying that, but not tonight. Appreciate you coming in as well. Everyone for watching at home. Thank you for your civic participation. I would like to thank the mayor for his proclamation of Women's History Month. I will say this about women's history. If any of you have a gay man in your life, you'll know how important women are to those gay men, and I am no less that. Women are not just the backbone of Whitehall, they're the backbone of this world. Fierce, admirable, the best of humankind. So they've always got my appreciation. I myself love strong women, strong, intelligent women. They just mean everything to me. But I did bring in two quotes, both from the same person, the actress Katharine Hepburn. She was a bit of a leader, a forerunner of the 20th century woman. You know, she wore pants before women wore pants, and she actually kind of acted like a man because she could get away with a lot of things that she couldn't acting as a woman. So she was a real trailblazer in women's history. But here's two quotes, and they were so good that I couldn't just say one. So from Katharine Hepburn, she said, "Good girls go to heaven, bad girls go everywhere." And then she also said, "Sometimes I wonder if men and women really suit each other. Perhaps they should live next door and just visit now and then." She was an inimitable person. I would like to thank, I was glad to see that the Food Truck Festival is going to be moving to John Bishop Park. I know that it's for the reasons given because of Yearling Road. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes over there in the park. It's a different setup. It's not quite a one-lane bowling alley of events, and I'm interested in seeing how it goes. Thank you, Ms. Stein, for coming in and sharing your thoughts on emergency measures. This is an issue that I have spoken many, many times. We here at council have spoken about it and talked about it, and brought up some things that we kind of had changed because of them, and certainly the attitude about them and so forth. So certainly we can have more conversation about it, and I think you deserve an explanation, but it's definitely something we discussed before. Ms. Weller or Waller? Waller? Okay, my apologies. Thank you for trying to get that all in 3 minutes. And of course, the inimitable Buckeye Bill Kramer. Thank you for asking that. I know it's been a topic that the citizens have been very passionate about and upset by, and rightly so. It's a mess out there, but I believe that the city definitely has the right reasons for it being in the movement that it does, and it's understandable. Finally, I would like to mention two citizens who just recently passed away. They both happen to have lived in Ward 1, but I don't mention them because of that. I mention them because I've known them nearly my entire life. First was, why do I talk about things that make me emotional? I don't know. The first was Robbie McKittrick. This is Lee's uncle. I've known the McKittricks over 50 years, and he just passed, and he was a good guy, a stalwart citizen of this city, and he deserves recognition for all his years of being a good citizen and good father and husband and everything else. The second one is Ronnie Brewer. Ronnie and I grew up here in Whitehall together, and Ronnie and I and others here in Whitehall probably got up to some mischief. But Mr. Brewer was a member of the service department for years, and he was a character, and he was a really good guy. And unfortunately, he passed on as well. And I thought that his passing and his service to this community through the service department certainly should get mentioned. And so that's it. Thank you, President Potter.
Thank you. Ms. Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our viewers for taking the time to watch this council meeting, also those that are here. Also want to thank Susan Foster, who provided us really good information, and hopefully we'll hear more and see more of what she's doing. Mayor, thank you for all the things that are happening in Whitehall. From the Food Truck Festival, which I'm looking forward to it being in a bigger area, just to see what it's gonna be like. It might be something that possibly stays, we don't know. But I'm looking forward to that. And the town hall regarding housing and growth. And I believe that's really, really important. It'll bring some perspective and some insight into what's happening not only in Whitehall, but in Franklin County. And your coffee chats, I heard good things about them, so continue to keep those going. And I want to thank those that came forward to poll. Ms. Stein, Ms. Waller. I love your enthusiasm when you come up here. You just, it's I don't know, kind of contagious. It makes me smile. So And then Mr. Kramer, thank you for that information. Sometimes things get worse before they get better, and I'm looking forward to the roads and all of that getting a lot better than they are, because I don't think my tires can take it any longer, or my car. So other than that, have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank all those watching at home and those that are present here, especially those that came up and spoke. You had good points, good information. I'd like to thank Susan Foster for her presentation. I think she done a very good job. I'd like to thank Mayor Bivens for his proclamation. It was excellently presented. Really appreciated that. Also on ordinance 2025, I voted no on that. I had some questions at the agenda meeting. To me, there were not sufficient answers, so I could not vote yes on a contract where I had questions on language and there was no clarification. Everybody have a good week, and thank you all.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Heck.
My turn? Now that everybody has said everything,
Yeah.
there's nothing left to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
See, I gave you a chance.
That is true. Okay, I'll just reiterate pretty much what everybody else says. Thank you, everybody that was watching from home. Thank you, Ms. Stein, Ms. Waller, and Mr. Kramer for coming up and speaking. Thank you to the mayor for the proclamation for Women's History Month, and Susan for giving her presentation. And I hope everybody got to enjoy the wonderful weather today, and everybody has a good week.
Okay. Now, everything's truly been said.
Yep.
So I would like to echo all of that, the folks that came forward this evening, the presentations, the mayor, the proclamation, very, very well done, and I think you worded it quite nicely, so appreciate that. Having no additional business for this council, I'm going to adjourn us at 7:46.